You have a chestnut in your hand. It's autumn, and you picked it up without thinking, off a sidewalk, out of a park, from underneath a tree you've walked past 100 times. It's smooth and hard and a little absurd, the way any seed is absurd once you actually look at it. You've done this since you were a kid. You'll probably do it again next year. Here's the thing. You have never once asked who planted the tree above you. Not which species, not when it seeded itself. If it did, who put it there? Because somebody did, or something did, some process, some hand, some system that put trees exactly like this one, in exactly this spacing, in this place, generation after generation, long before you or your parents or anyone you've ever met showed up to step over what fell. You've never asked because the question doesn't occur to you. The tree is just there, the nut is just on the ground. That is how ordinary something has to become before nobody thinks to ask about it anymore. 4 billion. That's the number of American chestnut trees confirmed dead by 1940. That is the number I kept returning to. And the more I looked at it, the more the thing in my hand, the same thing in yours, started to feel different. I wasn't the only one who noticed, not even close. I brought this up to people who had nothing to do with any of this, a neighbor, a coworker, someone I met at a wedding. Almost every one of them had the same buried memory. A grandparent's tree, a specific spot in a specific park, a nut collected as a kid for no reason anyone could explain, just because that's what you did that time of year. And when I started asking around more deliberately, I found the same thing everywhere. Not a fringe feeling, not a specialist's concern. A shared, quiet, never quite named unease about something almost everyone has touched and almost no one has examined. Nobody teaches this in school. Nobody explains, growing up, why the tree is where the tree is. It's just there, the way the sidewalk is there, the way the street sign is there. Furniture of the world. So here's the question that was sitting underneath all of it, the one nobody actually asks out loud. How did this come to be so ordinary when it is, when you actually look at it, so strange? Here's what we've always been told. The forests of the pre-industrial world, Europe, the Americas, most of the colonized world were wilderness, untamed, unmanaged, largely unproductive until agricultural reform came through and cleared the way for real farming. And wherever indigenous or pre-modern food systems existed alongside that wilderness, they were subsistence level at best. Enough to feed a family, never enough to feed a continent. And I want to be honest, that explanation is not nothing, it is reasonable, it rests on real evidence. Serious agricultural historians built it from genuine research, and for most of what happened across most of the world, it holds up. It accounts for almost everything. Almost. In 1817, a British surveyor walked the Dean Plateau for 3 days and wrote in his field notes that the trees around him were spaced with a regularity he couldn't explain, by chance spacing you'd expect from an orchard, not a wilderness. That note is real. It's archived. And it does not fit the story we were told about untamed forest. Which means the chestnut you're holding, the one that feels so ordinary, sits in that gap, in the space between what we've been told and what the specific record actually shows. And then I found it somewhere else. Not a similar thing. The same thing between 1,780 and 1,880 British colonial administrators moving through the Carolina Piedmont documented groves of pecan, walnut, and chestnut, spaced and tended with a precision that unsettled them. One administrator wrote that the layout could be mistaken for an orchard of great age. He wasn't speculating. He was describing what he saw in a survey meant to catalog resources, not romanticize them. It was an orchard, not planted in rows the way we'd recognize one, but maintained, thinned, tended, passed down by people whose knowledge of how to keep it that way lived in practice and memory. Not in any document a colonial office would think to preserve. Within 2 generations, that knowledge was gone. Not because anyone destroyed it outright, but because the systems that carried it, land tenure, community structure, the right to even be on that land, were dismantled out from under it. The official record calls this incidental, a byproduct of settlement, not a loss in itself. It has no line item for a forest that was, in fact, infrastructure. 2 instances. Different countries, different decades, the same gap in the same place. And the chestnut sitting in both of them, one in a Dean Plateau survey book from 1817, one in a Piedmont field report from the 1780s. Two surveyors, two continents, writing down the same confusion in almost the same words. In the Amazon basin, researchers found something called terra preta dark earth, deliberately engineered, containing charred organic matter, bone, and ceramic fragments, spread across potentially hundreds of thousands of square kilometers. Above nearly every terra preta site, botanists have documented anomalous concentrations of useful food species clustered in combinations that don't occur naturally. Researchers at the Ruger Bošković Institute and the University of Georgia have published this in peer-reviewed archaeology journals. 6,000 miles from the Piedmont, same gap, a soil engineered to hold a forest that colonial botanists walking through it described as wild. In coastal and interior West Africa, colonial administrators between 1,820 and 1,900 documented sacred grove food systems, complex, multi-species food forests maintained by communities and protected by cultural law, not by fences or deeds. British and Dutch land tenure reforms in the mid to late 1800s effectively criminalized common forest use and converted these polyculture systems into monoculture plantations within a single generation. Another continent, same window. The record calls it modernization. It does not call it a loss, because it never framed the thing being lost as something that had been built. In Java, Malaya, and the surrounding territories, Dutch and British colonial administrations introduced land tenure reforms in the same compressed decades, the 1850s through the 1890s, that dismantled managed polyculture forest systems and replaced them with plantation monoculture. The paperwork survives, the forests do not. The administrators who filed the reports had no reason to record what they were erasing, because as far as their training told them, there was nothing there to erase. Different countries, different colonial administrations, different languages, different institutions, centuries and oceans apart. The same specific thing missing from the same specific place in the record. This is not the shape of coincidence. Coincidence scatters, this clusters. And the chestnut in your hand is in every one of those places, not metaphorically. The same layered, multi-species, deliberately structured food system hedgerow in Wales, orchard forest in the Piedmont, terra preta grove in the Amazon, sacred grove in West Africa, managed polyculture in Java collapsed inside the same 150-year window on 4 continents, under 4 different colonial administrations that never coordinated with each other. You were not handed something local, you were handed something that used to be global. Here's what the official explanation requires you to accept, not as a conspiracy, as simple arithmetic. 5 different continents, 4 separate colonial administrations, British, Dutch, and the independent trajectory of the Amazon's own deep history before any of them arrived. 5 distinct food forest systems, each one built on knowledge that had accumulated over centuries, in some cases over 1,000 years or more. All of them dismantled, converted, or left to collapse within the same roughly 150-year window, 1750 to 1900, without a shared plan, a shared office, or a single document instructing anyone to do it. No telegraph line connected the Piedmont to Java in 1817. No shared bureaucracy linked Kew Gardens botanical surveys to the Dutch East India Company's land tenure reforms. The administrators in West Africa in the 1880s had no way of knowing what a surveyor in England's Forest of Dean had written 70 years earlier, let alone what was happening to soil in the Amazon at the same moment. I am not saying someone coordinated this. I am saying the coordination problem does not have a clean answer inside the official explanation. And the official explanation has never been required to provide one, because it never framed what was lost as a system in the first place, only as wilderness cleared. The chestnut in your hand is the product of that timing, whatever it was, however it happened. You are holding what's left of a process that occurred without any documented coordination mechanism across 5 continents in a window the official record simply calls progress. He was standing on the Dean Plateau in October of 1817. He has been walking for 3 days. He was a surveyor, sent ahead of colonial expansion to catalog the land before roads and settlement came through it. He was responsible for recording what was useful and what wasn't: timber, water, soil, nothing more. He wrote in his field notes that the trees around him were arranged with a regularity that made him suspect the hand of man in the placement of each species. He filed the report. He moved on to the next section of the survey. The record shows nothing further about him, no name that survived clearly enough to trace, no later career, no indication he ever thought about that plateau again. He was not making a decision. He was doing his job. And his job, done exactly as designed, produced a written record of a structure that would be gone within a generation, unprotected by the very survey meant to catalog what was there. He did not know what he was part of. The record does not show that anyone told him. That is either ordinary bureaucracy or the most important thing in this entire investigation. The record cannot tell us which. I want to be honest with you about what I cannot prove, not as a disclaimer, as the most important thing I can say. I cannot prove that these 5 systems were connected to each other in any direct way. I cannot prove whether their collapse was deliberate policy or simple emergent neglect, different administrators making similar mistakes for different local reasons that happened to land in the same window. And I cannot prove what these food forests were originally capable of beyond what the survivors, like the Welsh hedgerows, suggest. What I can show you is the pattern. What I cannot show you is the intent. And I want to be clear. A pattern without documented intent is not proof of anything. It is a shape in the record that the official explanation has not been required to account for. I'm also aware that I've been looking for this pattern for a long time now. Minds that look for patterns find them. I am not exempt from that. What I'm asking you to do is not to trust my pattern recognition. I'm asking you to look at the 5 documented instances I've shown you and tell me whether the official story, Untamed Wilderness, Cleared for Progress, accounts for all of them. It does not account for all of them. That is not my conclusion. That is the gap. There is one thing the record preserved that connects the chestnut in your hand to everything I've shown you. The hedgerow systems of the Welsh borders and parts of Ireland, ancient field boundaries containing hazel, crab apple, elder, wild plum, damson, sloe, cobnut, sweet chestnut, and mulberry, growing together in combinations that don't occur naturally and require deliberate planting. They're several hundred years old, conservatively. Some may be older. They exist today. They're accessible. They did not survive because someone protected them. They survived because they were too small, too marginal, too easy to overlook. The enclosures simply never bothered to reach them. The chestnut is in your pocket, or your palm, or on the ground by your foot. It was there before you watched this. It will be there after. Nothing about it has changed. It's still hard, still smooth, still small enough to close your hand around completely. What's changed is what you know about where it came from. About the 150-year window in which systems like the one that grew disappeared on 5 continents at once. About the surveyor on the Dean Plateau in 1817 who wrote down what he saw and then walked on. About the 4 separate administrations that dismantled the same kind of thing in the same compressed span of time with no documented coordination between them at all. The chestnut was not created for you, it was created about you, or rather, the tree above it was kept alive by people who understood something about feeding a population that the record never gave a name to, because the record never recognized what it was looking at as a system in the first place. The hedgerows remain, and if you look at them long enough, they tell you exactly how something becomes ordinary, not through familiarity, through the completely ordinary act of no one ever explaining why it was necessary in the first place. The chestnut has been in your life since before you could read. You have never been asked whether you wanted it. You have never been told what it replaced. What would you do differently if you had been?